Hi, I'm my personal writing coach, and this is a quick fix. Today's discussion will be expanding on how to write a good formal paper. We will be building a main point, focusing on the TIQA method here. So let's go ahead quickly and review what a formal essay outline should look like. All papers, academic papers I should say, will start with an introduction and with a conclusion. And the main points in the middle is what sandwiches those two together. It's really the nuts and the bolts of your paper. It is where the discussion happens that will be proving the claim you made in your introduction. So that introduction, the key sentence in your whole introduction was that last sentence, which is your thesis statement. Your topic sentence, which each main point will begin with a topic sentence. It will be the first sentence of each paragraph. Those topic sentences will link directly to the thesis. Now, if you do not understand what an introduction is or a thesis or topic sentences, please pause this video, go back and review the video that I have on introductions and topic sentences. They're vital. You can't build a paper without understanding what a thesis and topic sentence is. Okay, so here I promised that we were going to be following the TIQA method. A TIQ method is nothing magic, although I do think it is magical in the way that it helped me figure out how to formulate each and every paragraph. It's really just a fill-in-the-blank formula, kind of like Mad Libs. Remember when you used to do that? Fill in a noun, a verb, an adjective, and you read the whole story and you have a funny story. I kind of see TIQA as the same way. It's just to fill in the blank. What do I need to do first, second, third? So let's look at what that TIQA is. And we've got, my paper is not quite being nice to me. Okay, so TIQA is just an acronym found on the internet. When I was a kid, I didn't know how to write papers, and I was in high school, I didn't know how to write papers, and I had to write research papers, and I remember them being taken through the steps in the research process, but no one ever really taught me how to write papers. So when I was a homeschool mom, I didn't know what to do with my kids. I didn't know how to teach them to be writers. I wasn't even sure if I was a good writer. So I did what you do. When you don't understand how to do something, you hit the internet. And that's exactly what I did. And that's where I found the TIQA method. And it is out there all over the place. So if what I explain here doesn't make sense to you enough, or it doesn't give you enough examples, go hit the internet. It will give you way more examples. So the TIQA, T, topic sentence, I, introduce your quote, Q, quote, A, analysis. It's a 4 easy steps. Well, 4 basic steps. It doesn't get easy until you practice. So keep practicing, it'll get easier. Okay, because I know what's easy for me is not easy for you, but that's why I'm here, because I can make your work easier for you. And if you have any questions, you can contact me at any time. All right, so that topic sentence, we've already discussed what that is. It defines the scope of each paragraph. Introduction to the quote, or introducing the quote. It gives just enough background to set up the quote, and it ends with a comma or a colon. Now, an introduction to a quote is not George Washington said, or the people agreed. Blah. No, that's in dialogue. That's not in an academic paper. What an introduction to the quote is it starts to build a reason for me to read your quote. I don't want a quote thrown at me. I don't want it to be fact after fact after fact. I want to be explained. What am I looking for? So you're going to give just enough background to set up the quote, and then that phrase will end with either a comma or a colon. Never, never, never a period. There is one other way where you cannot have any punctuation mark, but that's a little bit more specialized, and I will do a video just on that one alone. So just for now, when you're learning how to do it, no a comma or a colon. Now, my rule of thumb, I use a comma when my introduction to the quote is a phrase. I use a colon when it's an introduction, when it's an independent clause. I don't really think there's a rule against either one. You can use a colon with a phrase or a comma with a independent clause. That's just the way I like it. But I won't mark you wrong if you do it either way. All right. Then after the introduction to the quote, obviously, the quote would come next. That's one of my favorite questions I give on a test. What comes after the introduction to the quote? And it's even with the multiple choice question, it's funny how I can freak people out that it seems too obvious that the quote should come next. But that's exactly what comes next. It's the quote. Now, the quote can be kind of taken liberally here. It can be an exact quote from your source. It can be, then you'd have to put it in, your quotation marks, or it can be a direct fact. It can be something taken from a resource. So you can still use the TIQA method if you're not going to be giving an actual quote. And I'll show you how to do that in the sample. Okay, your final step, I think this is the most exciting part. This is the analysis part. This is where you get to do your talking. Remember when I said this was like Mad Libs? Topic sentence, insert topic sentence, thesis, subpoint, introduce your quote, give your quote. It's pretty much regurgitated. It's just giving facts. It's just kind of blandly laying things out on the line. The analysis is where I can start hearing your voice. It's you discussing how that fact, how that quote explains or expands or defends your claim. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at how this is being played out. In the previous videos on the thesis and the topic sentence, I'm using the same example, so it's just kind of following along. This is my thesis statement, and we're focusing on the heroic journey, comparing it from the author, the Black woman, to the protagonist, Janie. First paragraph, I'm going to talk about Janie as a hero and as a model for Black women. So let's go ahead and jump into how this would look as a full paragraph. So here again, we have the topic sentence, first sentence, and every single paragraph guiding the whole paragraph. Hurston's portrayal of Janie as a hero places her as a model for Black women who struggle to find their own identity in a male-dominated world. Now I'm going to begin the introduction to the quote. Now the first quote I give is not a typical quote, it's a detailed fact. So see how I'm doing it? It's going to be a little bit different than that comma and colon thing, because facts do not need to be introduced with a linking punctuation mark. Hurston understands the struggles every Black woman faces as she struggled to live her own life in the face of rejection. So that's a little bit background on who Hurston is. And leading into the detailed fact, after leaving home at the age of 14, Hurston bounced around between homes and had to fight for her own financial survival. Now look at the difference between this introduction to the fact and the fact. The introduction to the fact is very broad and very general. The detailed facts is information that I never would have guessed unless I had read a book about this. So I'm citing the source, I'm citing who gave me that fact. If you don't, it's plagiarism, and that is no words can describe how bad plagiarism is. I'll have a whole video on plagiarism to scare you and keep you up at night. Anyhow, after the sentence, open parenthesis, last name of the author, page number that I found it on, close parenthesis, period on the outside. This closes that sentence, links the citation to the previous work. So there's no punctuation mark here, and there's a period here. Now remember, these are just facts. I don't have to have a colon or a comma, so here it's okay to have a period. Knowing that she needed to find a patron who would finance her education. Now that's kind of revamping a little bit of the information. Hurston often found herself having to pander to white people for her very existence. This is another detailed fact, something else that I did not know without research. Because I have cited this here, it is good for 2 to 3 sentences. It's assumed that that citation will cover for the next couple of facts given. Down here is where I'm going to start introducing a new quote. Since Hurston was dependent on being accepted by her white patrons and editors to make sure she had enough money to live on, she was not free to be independent as long as she was forced to look to others for approval. Now here I'm going to give an actual quote. It's going to be by the same author of Karanja, however you pronounce that name. So it's a full independent clause. I chose to use a colon. And then here's my quotation mark. Only when a woman is self-supporting and independent is she able to speak and write without fear. close quote, no punctuation mark. Now in this citation, because I'm using the same source Karanja, I don't have to repeat Karanja. I'm just going to give the new page. Parenthesis 64, parenthesis, period. Again, links it to the previous sentence. Now this next introduction to a quote is leading into another actual quote. So we'll follow the same rules about having a comma or a colon. This is the exact place that Janie finds herself in as her grandmother forces her into a safe and stable but loveless marriage. There's my colon, and then the open quote. Notice that the I is lowercase, just as the O was lowercase up here. This is not like in the rules with quotation marks with dialogue. In quoting facts in academic papers, you don't capitalize that first letter. It is all right by Nanny that Logan Hillocks is neither loved nor desired by Janie, for he has 40 acres under plow and a house, quotation mark. These are the exact words of Karanja, so it's quoted, found on page 62. Remember, punctuation mark on the outside, no punctuation on the inside. Now we're going to go into the analysis. This is going to be a 2-sentence analysis. You want to do a fairly good job with your analysis. You don't have to go overboard, but please don't skimp. Nanny sees financial stability as the panacea that will protect her granddaughter from the abuse that she and Janie's mother faced at the hands of white men. Her idea of safety was born out of victimization. Love was not even in the picture. So we were talking about a male-dominated world. We wrap it up referencing the same idea. Okay, let's go on and review a few things that you want to double check. Remember that your topic sentence needs to directly link to that thesis. If you print out your paper, you should be able to draw an arrow from the idea in the topic sentence to the idea in the thesis statement. The introduction to your quote gives just enough background to allow someone with no knowledge of the story to understand what the quote is about. Please do not act like your 4-year-old brother or sister who tells you about a movie and it takes them 45 minutes to tell you what a half an hour scene is like. Just the basics. Be careful not to give sentences a plotline explanation, and that's what that is. Every introduction to a quote will end with a colon or a comma if you are leading into a quotation. If it's a direct fact, that is not necessary. There is another way leading into a quote, but we'll get into that later. It's more specialized. Remember that the analysis ensures that you explain how the quote proves what you promised in the topic sentence. This is where your voice takes over, and it should be a fair discussion. Things to never ever do, especially in, well, ever, anywhere. But the place that you will probably be tempted to do this is in your analysis. Don't slip into that personal first person discussion. No personal pronouns. The only time you will see a personal pronoun is if it is in a direct quote, and that's the only time, and honestly that will be very rare. Here is a list of personal pronouns. If you don't have them, jot them down, tape them to your desk. I know this was long, very long, and thank you for hanging in there till the end. If you need any more help, feel free to contact us, mypersonalwritingcoach.com. We are here to help you. I know this is going to take practice. Do not worry if you're not doing it right. That's what we're here for. We will hold your hand, we will guide you, we will get you to the point you need to be. I've never had a student not be able to do this. It takes time, it takes practice, but you can do it. Have a great day.